Standard histories of Indian resistance usually begin with the 1857 Sepoy Mutiny. Yet for a century before those soldiers raised their rifles, the first anti-imperial wars were already being waged by the poorest farmers and tribal groups in the fields of Bengal. This map illustrates the mechanism of their exploitation. Under the British permanent settlement, a rigid system was established to maximize revenue. The system empowered zamindars, local landlords, along with indigo planters and moneylenders, allowing them to systematically drain the peasantry of their wealth and land. Stripped of their harvests and pushed past the point of starvation, the poorest citizens faced a choice. They could no longer accept the absolute theft of their livelihoods, and they began to organize. The weight of British economic policy, designed to extract maximum wealth from the land, forged the exact mass uprisings that would eventually bring the empire to its knees. Engaged, curious, take Haji Shariatullah. Born in a peasant family, he spent 2 decades traveling through the Middle East, studying Islamic theology in Mecca and at the Al-Azhar University in Cairo. In 1818, he returned to India and founded the Faraizi Movement. Originally a religious reform effort, the movement quickly turned political. Shariatullah declared British India Dar-ul-Harb, an enemy land. Using the concept of strict religious equality, he successfully united hundreds of thousands of Muslim peasants against the wealthy zamindars. This diagram illustrates the immense scale of the shadow state built by his son, Dudu Mian. Dudu Mian militarized the movement by explicitly banning the payment of zamindar taxes. He divided Bengal into regional administrative zones called halkas. Each halqa contained hundreds of families and was overseen by a designated deputy, or khalifa, complete with an intelligence network of spies and armed clubmen. At the exact same time, a parallel storm was brewing. The Wahabi movement originated in Arabia, but was brought to Bengal by a leader named Titumir, who adopted the ideology during a pilgrimage to Mecca. Titumir weaponized this religious fervor against vicious local exploitation, like the Zamindar Krishnadeva Rai's punitive tax specifically targeting men who kept beards. The tension exploded in the 1831 Faraizi Rebellion. Titumir effectively erased British authority across a massive swath of territory. He declared himself Badshah, formed an independent government, and constructed the legendary Bansar Kela, a massive bamboo fort at Narkelberia. The scale of the rebellion triggered panic among local landlords and British officials. In November 1831, Lord William Bentinck deployed a heavily armed military expedition. The British artillery reduced the bamboo fort to splinters, and Titumir was killed in the fighting. While cloaked in religious vocabulary, these plains uprisings functioned as agrarian wars. They proved that impoverished farmers could build organized, capable governments to challenge the British crown. The rebellion extended far beyond the agricultural plains. Deep in the forests of the Chotanagpur Plateau, the independent Kol tribes lived relatively undisturbed. That changed abruptly when the British leased their lands to outside moneylenders and imposed brutal new tax systems. The tribesmen responded with the 1831 Kol Rebellion. They systematically tracked down and destroyed all symbols of British authority and extraction. They killed landlords and tax collectors, sparing only the local blacksmiths, because they needed them to forge arrowheads and spears. This chart shows the staggering math of the debt traps laid out for another tribal group, the Santhals. Driven out of their ancestral homes and into a designated hilly territory known as the Damin-e-Ko, the Santals were subjected to rigged scales by merchants and predatory loans from moneylenders. Interest rates ranged from 50 to 500%, guaranteeing a cycle of permanent debt. In June 1855, 2 brothers, Sidhu and Kanhu, rallied 10,000 Santals in a massive field to declare the formation of an independent state. Within weeks, their ranks swelled into an army of 50,000 fighters. The Santhal War was a terrifyingly asymmetrical conflict. Tens of thousands of tribesmen armed with traditional bows and spears faced off against modern British rifles. Yet they fought fearlessly, successfully severing British railway and postal lines and entirely halting colonial operations from Bhagalpur to Munger. The British response was overwhelming. By February 1856, multiple military regiments had crushed the rebellion. 36 tribal villages were erased from the map, and an estimated 23,000 Santhals were killed. The tribal wars functioned as highly organized territorial defenses. They were built to protect communities from a system designed to strip them of their land and their humanity. Which brings us to a historical debate. Were these uprisings isolated skirmishes, or were they the first true wars for Indian independence? Modern historians like R.C. Majumdar and Suprakash Roy have re-evaluated the scale of the Santhal and Wahabi bloodbaths. They categorize these movements as the direct forerunners of the Great Revolt. The 1857 mutiny followed a blueprint drafted earlier by Bengal's poorest farmers and forest tribes. Through sheer sacrifice, they proved an empire could bleed.